Hello again, everyone. If you tried to join us earlier, we were doing a live stream, but the sound was not working properly. So we believe we have it working properly now. But I had to end the live stream and re-begin so that there's not 25 minutes of basically non-working sound, which is what it was. So rather than have people joining for the first time or watching for the first time have to go through 25 minutes before they realize we did a whole nother show, I'm deleting that prior live right now. And this will be the new Christian Witnesses of Jah live discussion number 40, which is part 4 in our Angels of Jah in Genesis series, which follows our Angels of Jah in Zechariah series. Now, when we're not doing an actual series, we discuss topics related to different issues. As Christian Witnesses of Jah, our primary belief is one God the Father, Jah, Jah-ol. We also accept other forms of pronunciations, I should say, of his name, is as long as people, are just doing it because they're used to it or they genuinely believe it's okay. We try to accommodate as much as we can while promoting what we believe to be the best belief based on the best evidence. And then our second most important belief is Jesus as our sent forth Savior. Our third required belief is the golden rule, treating and loving each other the way we want to be treated. Of course, we can't do that perfectly, but we can try. And as long as people are trying, that's really all we ask. So, unless there's a serious issue where you need to approach someone, like Jesus says in Matthew 18, to lay bare your fault and try to work it out. And if that doesn't work, you take someone else. If that doesn't work, you take everybody else. So everybody knows what's going on. It's how we try to meet together. We're a group that's dedicated to the study of the Bible. We believe in the Bible as the best representation of historical information related to the God Jah and to those who worshiped him, and as records of events that are not as available from other ancient sources, but that nonetheless do speak of them. Things like the flood. So if you want to increase your knowledge and understanding of things like the angels of God in the Bible, or just basic Christian beliefs and practices according to the New Testament, we also consider other related literature. So we don't only read the Bible. We do believe the biblical books are unique, and we do agree with the collection of the text that we have available in most printed editions as being the best. Doesn't mean there aren't other texts that could be included and that might be similar, but certainly if you're like me, you believe what we have in the Bible is by and large the best representation of Judeo-Christian information about God. All right, let's see. Before I go any further, make sure we have sound that is functioning as it should. So while I continue the pre-show, if those of you who are in the chat, who do we have? George Lopez, good to see you. Sonia Carbajal, and AK from the UK. Thank you for joining us, AK. If one of you or all of you could confirm if the sound is as it should be, that it's not going in and out, that'd be great. If it's not, and if it's good, we'll keep going. So with that in mind, we'll officially begin part 4 in a few minutes. We'll give people time to join, especially after we started a live, but the sound was not good. So I had to reset it. Looks like it's good. We'll find out. Either way, we're on part 4 of Angels of Jah in Genesis. Okay, and if you watched our series, our multi-part series on the Angels of Jah and Zechariah, then you see things just from that one book, Zechariah. We read the whole thing. I encourage you to watch that series if you haven't already. We read it all because it's not as big as Genesis. And pretty much the Angels of Jah are there the whole time. Okay, looks like sound is good. Awesome. I'm pumped up. I almost suspended the show and was going to push it to tomorrow because, again, if it's not going to sound good, that's not the way we want to do it, right? If we can help it, then that's what we got to do. So, okay, good. And thank you for letting me know there was a problem. I need to know that so I don't spend a lot of time. We can always do it when the quality is better. I want to do it when I want to do it too, but if the quality's not good, that's not going to be as appealing to as many people. Either way, so we're in part 4, but if you watch the prior parts about the Angels of Jah and Zechariah, then again, there are things you saw, like I saw, that help explain what's going on in the Bible, right? With these angels, these sons of God, these gods who are with God in the creative periods of Genesis. As you know, if you watched the earlier parts of this series on the Angels of Jah and Genesis. So after moving from Zechariah to Genesis now, we've gone from Genesis 1 and through tonight, after tonight's show, we will have gone through Genesis chapter 24. And while we read all of Zechariah, again, we're not reading all of Genesis because it's longer. And it contains entire chapters or sections that don't have anything to do with the Angels of Jah. So we're just reviewing the sections in the chapters that I list that explicitly or potentially involve the Angels of Jah. Now, we've found out quite a bit so far, haven't we? We've seen it through Genesis 1 through 18. These angels are all over the place, right? I mean, they're in chapter 1, in the creative period with God. We verified that by reviewing Psalm 8 and Job 38 in light of Genesis 1, and there's no way we can conclude other than that the angels, the sons of God, the gods, were with God and are likely those he's talking to if he's not only exclusively talking to his son with regard to the making part, but even if that's the case, the other sons of God are there. It's a fact. They were there when the earth was measured and founded. They were there when mankind was made, because mankind was made lower than these angels, gods, sons of God. Unlike the animals who were just made, after whom man was made superior to them. That's not how man is described in relation to the already existing gods of Psalm 8:5. So, and Hebrews chapter 2 in the New Testament confirms the Septuagint translation identification of those gods as angels, as the same sons of God that are in Job 38 during that same period of time when the earth and mankind are being made. So when God says, let us make, whether he's talking directly to the sons of God, those gods, they're there. It's not just the word who's there, but we know the word is there. No one disputes that except for, certain groups. We're not going to get off onto that because we're going to focus on what the text actually says so we can prove what the Bible teaches. Right? We're not here to promote a creed or a special belief apart from the text. What does it teach? In its historical context and in its literary context. What are they talking about? What were they thinking about? Remember, we discussed also how with Trinitarians, when they see angels, they don't think of gods. they may not even think of sons of God. Who knows? And if they do think of sons of God, they don't think of sons of God as gods, even though that's how they argue with regard to Jesus being a son of God as being God, right? It's the only kind of connection they ever want to make where it concerns this filial relationship between sons of God and how that creates this divine relationship. No, it's only Trinity, right? It's only Jesus in that sonship sense. No, that's not the case, though, is it? The other sons of God are sons there, too. During the creative periods, and while they're not the firstborn, they're still gods. They're angels whom God is using all throughout the Bible in a manner very similar to, if not identical with, how the firstborn is used. So, from Genesis 1 through to 18, in addition to the whole creative period, we saw in the Garden of Eden, we saw Satan was there. We identified him as only capable of belonging to the sons of God category, because none other than them, besides humans, could act in these ways that we could see from how things were made. And then we also know from other texts, of course, that is who he is, that he's a spirit being, a son of God, an angel, right? He enters right in among the sons of God with the sons of God, according to Job. So he's not described as anything but that. He's with them when they go before the Father, but he stands out, right? Because he's doing his own will. So he's unusually present with them, even though that's where he should be if he were doing what he should be doing. But he's not. So it stands out. It's creating this problem. And it created a problem with humanity as well. And when humanity was expelled, God set up the cherubim, whom we also later know may not only be one of whom Satan is, according to Ezekiel, but involves angelic beings. So we have the cherubim garden, the Garden of Eden with the flaming sword. Then we have other appearances of angels, including sons of God in Genesis 6, who couldn't possibly be humans, as we discussed, because what is said of those angels, those sons of God, noticing the daughters of humans and then the Nephilim following, was already happening with the sons of man in order for the daughters to be born to man. As their numbers increased, and then the sons of God noticed them. Something that, again, was already happening in a human sense. So we've reached the point now where, in the last part to this series, part 3, we reviewed Genesis 18. And we saw something very interesting, right? We saw these 3 men. We saw these 3 men, but they start to be referred to in a very direct way as Ja'ol, right? As Jehovah. And then we see one of them staying and 2 of them going to Sodom. All right. Now, we proved conclusively, and I encourage you to watch our last part 3, for more, that there's no way the Father could be any of those beings. And I primarily argued from the fact that no one has seen God at any time, and no one has heard his voice, in particular the Father's voice. And we combine that with the fact that all 3 of these men, were being seen in unusual ways too, where like Sarah thought she was going to die. Very similar to how Manoah and his wife felt in Judges 12 when the angel appeared in the flame off the altar and they said, "As God we have seen," or "a God," as I think it should appropriately be rendered. Either way, no one has seen God at any time. John 1:18. And we read, right? We read John 5. At the very end of last part, we read John 5:37 and 38, where Jesus says, you have not seen the Father's figure or heard his voice at any time. But we argued on behalf of Trinitarians, well, they could argue that contextually, that's limited just to who he's talking about. That you have not heard the Father's voice. Doesn't mean others haven't heard the Father's voice. Therefore, the Father could be one of the three men in Genesis 18, right? Trinity. That's how many Trinitarians see that account. Although it gets a little complicated for them once it's made clear, as it's going to be in tonight's reading, that the two men that went to Sodom are angels. Okay, and this is where Trinitarians start to get off onto this whole different idea of what an angel is. As we know, Trinitarians will argue vehemently, very strongly, like almost like it's heresy. It is to them, and it is and it isn't, right? He knows all things, he doesn't know all things, right? It's just they live in contradictions that can't be resolved. So we get this whole situation with them where they will claim that Hebrews 1, for example, proves Jesus can't be an angel. And even though it doesn't prove that, right, he actually has to become better than the angels because he's not an angel. He's a man, Hebrews 2. We've talked about it. But looking at it from a Trinitarian point of view, they argue he's not an angel, and then they argue he is an angel. He's a special angel, a type of angel the Bible never describes. They just believe in because they have to, because of Trinity. And so, that being the case, all right, but now we have two of the men being called angels. And sometimes Trinitarians will also say basically the same thing with Holy Spirit, right? It's the uncreated messenger of the Father and the Son, right, type thing. They just recategorize everything to be Trinity. So, again, you could literally have a text that says Jesus is the very first creation of God ever. They'll just say that's outside of time, so it's eternal, doesn't matter, right? It's all about their doctrine. Moving aside things that aren't in the Bible, though, then we just disallow things that they're using to try to promote their doctrine, right? If it's not in the Bible, who cares? So they can say all they want about time, this, that. Well, where does it say that in the Bible? Where are you getting these distinctions where there's no time happening here and there? Right? We literally have the sons of God appearing. The day came, the time came. Trinitarians, that's time. You understand time? Okay, well, the day came. The time came when the sons of God went before God. That means they have times there. That means they have days there. They have periods there where they're not before God. And the day comes where they are before God. You understand? Good. So stop lying to everybody about time, okay? You're just confusing people for your doctrine. We're not going to do that. We're going to focus on the text. And when we do that, we realize, okay, we not only have two beings here called angels. So Trinitarians would have to say this is basically the Son and the Holy Spirit, uncreated angel, and goes against the whole anti-angel for the Son in the New Testament. But then they have the Father, right? We have the Father, they would say, being left behind, talking to Abraham about, how many it would take to spare Sodom. They get down to 10, right? So this is how the Trinitarians usually see this account, these three men. But as we saw in part 3, again, just summarizing right before we begin our part 4 with chapter 19, it says that the angel who's speaking as Jehovah doesn't know what's going on. He has to go down there and find out what's going on. So he's not only not omniscient, according to how Trinitarians see all three members of the Trinity. He's also not omnipresent, according to the way they see God. He has to go down. I mean, literally, it says the outcry is going before him. And you'll see why I say that's not Jehovah. It's an angel acting as Jehovah. That becomes so clear tonight. But I think it's even clear from the fact I just pointed out, right? The fact that that being doesn't know what's going on, even though the complaint is being heard. And then he has to go down there. So that's two essential attributes that are inconsistent with Trinity. Right? There's no way that could be any one of them could be the Father if they have to do that. Not according to Trinitarians, the way they see omniscience, omnipresence. So, where's the Father? Is the Father one of the two angels? Again, all three are being heard and seen by Abraham and Lot. So we talked about John 1:18, right? No one has seen God at any time. I referred to Exodus 33 as well, where Moses wants to see God's glory, right? And God says, you can't. No man can see my face and live. I'll let you see my backside when I pass. Right? And the account describes how God put his hand over the rock where Moses hid. And you saw him from behind. Okay, and then we read again, as I mentioned, John 5, where Jesus said, you've neither heard his voice nor seen his figure. We thought, well, Trinitarians could argue that's just them. Well, but they can't get out of John 1:18, right? No one has seen God at any time. So if all three of those men were God and addressed as God and actually God, that doesn't fit with John 1:18. Well, Trinitarians might say, well, he was somehow cloaked or something. Well, it doesn't say that, though. You're just adding stuff to fit Trinity. But there's another text. Okay, there's another text. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. Go to the Bible Hub. Welcome to part 4 of the Angels of Jah in Genesis, chapters 19 through 24. After tonight, I believe you should absolutely understand what's going on with angels in the Bible. Essentially, after I finished chapter 24 for this part 4, I realized, okay, it's obvious. It literally tells us, it shows us, and everything before chapters 19 through 24 is basically all explained right here. This is the show. If you just showed up out of nowhere into the Christian Witnesses of Jah, Angels of Jah in Genesis series, and you picked part 4 to do it, good for you. You picked the right show. Even though we've talked about a ton of stuff. Genesis 1:26, Genesis 6, Genesis 18 in prior parts. This is it. This is the one. And those of you who have been following me and watching videos, we did talk about Genesis 19 in part 33 of the Christian Witnesses of Jah live discussion series. And I was like, when we get to that in the Angels of Jah series, I'll clip whichever one is better. I guarantee you this one's going to be better. There's a lot more I need to show you. Before I do that, there's another text also from John we didn't review in part 3. Okay, so we talked about John 1:18, very clear. No one see God in time, done. No one has heard the Father's voice or seen his figure, potentially only those Jesus was talking to in John 5. And then Moses, of course, God told him, no one can see my face and live. Everyone saw the 3 men who were called Jehovah, whom the Trinitarians say is Jehovah in Genesis 18:19, saw them all, heard them all. One text we didn't read together, though, in part 3 in that light, was John chapter 6. Let me bring you guys up here. Bible Hub. John 6:44, just to add to what we read in part about seeing and hearing God or the Father in part 3. Okay, but remember, Trinitarians like to point to these three men, that they say that's Trinity right there. They say that. Okay, well, 2 of them are explicitly called angels. So aside from all the problems that makes, the one that's not called an angel, who is most often, and even by Trinitarians, called the Father, Jehovah, basically, one of the persons of the Trinity, says he has to go down and find out something that an omniscient God would already know, according to Trinitarians. He's got to go down and find it out also. No, he's not omnipresent, so he's not there. It's another thing impossible for Trinity. So, and this is supposed to be the Father, right, who's saying this, that I gotta find out. I gotta find out if this is really going on. I gotta go down there. Well, Trinitarians, what are you talking about? How does that fit with your doctrine? Oh, I'll tell you how. It doesn't. John 6:44. Okay, this is another text I think that's very important on this whole seeing and hearing God or God the Father thing. Here Jesus says in verse 44, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, and I will raise them up at the last day. Verse 45. It is written in the prophets, they will all be taught by God. Okay, now this is a morally bankrupt representation of the divine name right there. NWT gets credit for using Jehovah because this is a quotation from the Old Testament where, guess what? Divine name is used. And according to all first century and earlier texts, the divine name was used in these quoted texts. So this is ridiculous. It's also not capitalized. So you would have no clue as an NIV reader, unless I just told you, that this is actually the divine name. Yeah. NIV. Terrible. So this is what is written. They will all be taught by Jah. Everyone who has heard the Father and learned from him comes to me. Okay, who does this text say we learn from? The Father, right? Who does the prophet say we would be taught by? God. Jah, divine name. Who taught Jesus according to John 7, 16, 17? You see, everybody, it's the Father. But the big verse is right here, verse 46. This is Jesus. No one has seen the Father except the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father. Okay, that's it right there. It's never happened. Nobody has ever seen the Father. The closest someone got was Moses, and that was from behind. That's it. So those three men are not the Father, and that completely fits with the one having to find out, to go down. And you're going to see that all come together as we read the relevant text from Genesis 19 through 24. You're going to see how the Bible interprets itself. And you don't need Trinity, okay? Don't forget John 6:46. No one has seen the Father. The one who is just identified by Old Testament quotations as a quotation as Jah, the one by whom we're all taught by, including the Son, John 7, 16, 17. So, no one has seen the Father but Jesus, of anyone on the earth, period. And I believe this basically what he says in John 5 as well. It's just because he actually is. Here it's no one, period, right? That's actually what it does say. Go to the multi here. In the Greek. But in John 5, it's, he is addressing them as you. So, ukati ton patera, heorakin tis. Not the Father anyone has seen. E me haon paratutheu. Except, e me is a way of saying except in Greek. Except the one who's with or from the Father. This one has seen the Father. Okay, so it has never happened. No matter whom the Bible says, whether it's God talking to Moses in Exodus, like in Exodus 3, out of the burning bush, or whether it's Manoah and his wife seeing the angel ascend in the flame off the altar, or whether it's Isaiah in Isaiah chapter 6 in a vision, it's not real. It's not the real Father. And if it was the real Father, then they're seeing him in Genesis 18 and 19. Even Sarah's thinking she's going to die. Well, no, it's no one has seen the Father. So there's no Trinity there. no matter what. Or they saw the Father, and it's not explained to us how all this fits together, right? So I believe it is all explained, though, because none of those angels were the Father. None of those three men were the Father, proven not only by the fact that two are explicitly called angels, but the other one is not omniscient, not omnipresent, and as you're going to see tonight, is in fact an angel. So let's get right to it. Genesis 19. We'll go ahead and stay with the Bible Hub. I have the NWT, which I use, of course, and for reasons like we just saw, right? You want to use the NIV, go ahead. You're going to find yourself reading New Testament texts where the divine name should be, right? A lot of you Trinitarians and others, you think you're just gutting it from the Old Testament. No, you've ripped it out of the New Testament as well. It doesn't matter what later New Testament copies say. We know what they would have said based on the source material and the fact that the New Testament writers weren't retarded. And they had no interest in removing God's name as you seem to. And there's nothing that indicates they used sacred name abbreviations, which even you don't use in your text, in spite of claiming you follow what is in the New Testament we have. No, you don't. You use actual, like we saw in NIV, you don't even use all capitals. No one would even know it's the divine name. If there was a special abbreviation with a line over it, probably they would have known in, John 6:45, 44? But they won't, because you guys don't even follow the New Testament copies we have. How about that? Don't forget to let our Trinitarian friends know that, everybody. Genesis 19. Let's do it. Just make sure everybody's doing okay right there. Thank you all again for joining me. Looks like we got Alexander Israel join us. Very nice. Okay, let's get back to it. Looks like you guys are doing great. We'll get right back to it so we can keep our content going, keep the motivation going. Genesis 19, we're going to read verses 1 through 25, okay? So let me bring you guys back up. I'll make this a little bigger here. Well, that's good. It's got the Greek kind of right across from it. We're staying with the NIV because it's the first one that shows up, but we'll go to the Hebrew if we need to. And the Greek also for comparison. So let's just see what we get, though, from the English of the NIV. And then we'll go from there. Genesis 19, 1 through 25. Now, this is a very important section of text for Trinitarians because they're convinced it's consistent with, if does not in fact prove, the Trinity. So let's read it and see what we can conclude. Verse 1, the two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening. All right, now these are two of the three men that are described in Genesis 18 that we discussed in part 3, and that Trinitarians often insist is the Trinity, right? So right here, though, we have an explicit identification that two of those three men are angels. So again, at a minimum, Trinitarians are telling us, if they're telling us that the three men of Genesis 18 are the three persons of the Trinity, which they do, then two of the three persons of the Trinity are angels, okay? We know they'll say they are, and then they'll define them as not being angels, as uncreated beings, which are not what angels are. But they don't have a choice because their doctrine puts them in conflict. That's why I have the whole series, the Bible and the Trinity in conflict, right? It doesn't fit. It doesn't work. And so they have to ignore and redefine all these things. We don't. It's just right here. This is our doctrine right here, right? Two of the three men were angels. All three, in fact, but two explicitly right here. We'll prove the third in just a moment. But we'd already know that because, as we discussed and in part 3 showed, the third one, who's not one of these two, doesn't know all things, isn't omnipresent, and is in fact an angel, as you're going to see. So the two angels arrived, and Lot was sitting in the gateway. When he saw them, he got up to meet them, and he bowed down with his face to the earth. Trinitarians, they go crazy over the fact that Jesus is worshipped in the New Testament with the Greek word proskuneo, and some of them try to claim that when people, as Jesus was still on earth before he was killed, they bowed down low and prostrated to the ground, like it says here that Lot did with these two angels, right? I mean, here you have the Greek verb proskuneo, and it says they worshipped with face upon the earth, or he worshipped. Lot worshipped with face upon the earth. So that's as low as you go, everybody. And this is, Trinitarians, that's why they try to claim these angels are part of the Trinity, but they're angels. Okay, so very early on, everybody, the book of Genesis made it very clear it is acceptable to proskuneo all the way down, face flat to the earth, on the ground, epitane gain. This was fundamental understanding, everybody. It's not confusing. It makes perfect sense. Therefore, when we see the Son of God going through all these things and being rewarded with a position that gets the same treatment, right? It's crazy stuff, the way Trinitarians think of things. Totally ignoring, defying, really, the explicit teaching of many Old Testament texts, but this is just a very early one toward angels. Verse 2. My lords, he is Lot. My lords, Lot said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we will spend the night in the square. Right? So remember, this is all part of Jehovah finding out, right? It said Jehovah, but again, you're going to see explicitly tonight, this is the big one, everybody. This is the show after which you will know, if you don't already, exactly how to understand the angels of Jah in the Bible, specifically the book of Genesis, but there's no contradiction here, right? So, verse 3. So these angels have come. Jah said, I need to go find out. So who's going to find out? How is Jah doing that? What's happening, Trinitarians? It says they're angels. They've come into Lot. They told Lot they're going to stay in the public square, right? They want to find out. Remember what Jehovah told Abraham. If I find 10, I'll spare the city. So he sent these angels, and they were fully prepared to stay in the public square to find out what these people are about, right? You'll never know when the angels are there. That's why they're so effective, of course. But he insisted, that is Lot, so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Verse 4. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. Okay, Trinitarians, I was going to say, well, I think we could still use it, right? It doesn't use the Greek word, panta or pas, a form of pas, for all. But in the Greek, it does say, and the men of the city. But that wouldn't include Lot, would it, Trinitarians? Right? Because Lot's with the angels, and they're all coming to Lot. So you see also how the Bible speaks, even without having to use all, like in the NIV. Clearly, Lot would be an exception to the men of the city. He's a man of the city, too. But they're contextually separated from him, which often happens when people are aggregated against others in ways where terms like all is used. Either way, I wanted to point that out. So they have now surrounded Lot's house. Verse 5, they called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them. Right? These are the sodomites, everybody. Ha ha! These are them. They want to anally abuse you or somebody, right? This is what they do. So you need to understand, okay, we have a lot of sodomites today. Perverts, bisexual perverts, homo pervs, basically every LGBTQ plus outside of hetero, which is normal. There's no cis, there's no nothing. There's just hetero, male, female. Maybe you have a biological condition. Outside of that, a defined, accepted condition. If you're not a heterosexual person, you're a pervert. If you stick your dick into someone's ass, you're a pervert. If you allow somebody outside of being, abused, forcibly, you know what I'm saying, the word that rhymes with raped. Outside of that, if you are allowing a person to repeatedly shove their dick in your ass, you are a pervert. You're disgusting. You're an abusive person who's misusing a body part for your own selfish, perverted desires. You're damaging the other person and yourself in numerous documented ways, all of which are disgusting. Take away the quality of your life and the quantity of your life. You're a pervert. If you choose to be a sodomite pervert and reject your heterosexual normal friends, you deserve every single thing you get. This is who they are, everybody. They're perverts. Okay, they want to take your children and pervert them. They're disgusting. Give them nothing. Do not support any of these pervert companies. Don't support any of these religious groups that are soft on perv. They should be exposing perv as much as possible. These are perverts, okay? They're abusing people's assholes because they're usually assholes. They're definitely perverts. These are disgusting individuals. They're here surrounding Lot's house and want to have sex with the angels. That's disgusting. They're perverts. How do you think these angels felt about these perverts? Well, we're going to find out right here. Here's how they feel. They're here to bring judgment by Jah. And it is a proper judgment for these perverts, these disgusting people who damage themselves and everybody else for no other reason than themselves. And they're too perverted to even understand the damage they're doing there. That's why they never talk about it. And that's why I will. Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, "No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. They're perverts, everybody. Stop being soft on these wicked perverts. What the heck are we doing here? How did this happen? Just exactly what is it that's causing you to permit this perv?" We're not having it, right? If you're a pervert, you can be a pervert who is trying to change to a non-perv. That's fine. You can't go running around justifying your perv, though. You got to be expressing remorse for your perv. Or go embrace your perv, as I say, right? Go have a ball. Go anally abuse somebody and yourself, if that's what you want. Get wiener rot, anal warts, all of it. Have a blast. We're not having it. No, we're going to blast the truth. And we'll let everyone know, hey, these are perverts. Yeah, you know your anus where crap comes out? Like toxic fecal matter? These perverts want to shove their dick up there. Yeah, they want to ejaculate into your anus and immunosuppress you. How about that? Would you like to have some lesions in your anus? Would you like to have some anal tears? Would you like to have a plug up your ass? Oh, okay. Well, then maybe a perv life is for you. In the Bible, there is no toleration of perv. None. Okay, you send them packing. All these anti-Watchtower perverts who love to get on here and, you can tell, man, they've had dicks in their ass and in their mouth regularly. These are perverts. These are men who take dick, okay? They're perverts. They're sodomites. No mercy. Nothing. They want to confess their perv. They want to try to not be perverts, and they want our help. No problem. You can be a pervert up here and resist it out here. We will help you. That's a good perv. Otherwise, out of here. Anal lesions and all, okay? You anti-Watchtower perverts. Show me one video where you've warned your community about anal warts, anal cancer, HPV, HIV, everything else. Show me that. And then I'll consider taking you seriously. But we all know you guys are perverts. And you never address that. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Here come the pervs, everyone. They love to say, oh, what about rape? What about this account here? Well, I have a video explaining this, don't I, you perverts? It's not rape. He's giving his daughters to these men, which in the context of this civilization was exactly what they did. In fact, they did a lot of other things, as you're going to see if you read this account, including the fact that Lot's daughters ended up sleeping with him because there wasn't another man around for them to preserve their offspring with. Well, that means that if there was another man around, that they would have taken that man. In other words, he wasn't giving them against their will here, perverts. You guys are perv, and you can't even interpret the biblical account. No, it was totally acceptable for the father to give his daughters away, and they were actually wanting that to happen. They're like heterosexual women, perverts. And heterosexual women actually want heterosexual men. One problem. The sodomites are not normal men. They're pervs like you perverts. See, they're not normal. Hence, out of here. They'd even go with their own father versus you pervs. And I don't blame them, right? Who wants a busted anus just because you guys can't figure out how to use a vagina? Unbelievable stuff. Disgusting. I love reading this account that describes these perverts getting exactly what these God mockers and anal abusers deserve. Get out of our way, these perverts replied. This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. We are going to sodomize you like no one has ever been sodomized before. That's how these perverts are. They love to perv, everybody. They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. For some reason, they just shove aside women's actual sexual organs and run for that anus, right? They want the fecal matter organ. Perverts. Verse 10, but the men inside reached out, right? The angels, the targets of these pervs. The angels reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, the perverts, young and old, with blindness, so they could not find the door. Verse 12, the two men said to Lot, the two angels, right? The two of the three men of Genesis 18. Do you have anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons or daughters, anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, right? So we're dealing with less than 10 people at this point. The angels are still open to, right? If you've got, whoever else you got that's of your household, get them out now. And this is over, right? These people are gone. It's Sodom here. They want to abuse us, right? And mock God. And we couldn't even persuade them with actual female vaginas. No, virgins too. These perverts, all they wanted was the new anuses, right? Unbelievable stuff. Verse 13, because we're going to destroy this place. The outcry to Jah against its people is so great. He has sent us to destroy it. Now I want you to think about that for a minute. Think about that, everybody. Who is talking here? It's two of the three men from Genesis 18, whom Genesis 19:1 immediately identified as angels, right? Because it said in Genesis 18, two of the three men were coming to Sodom. And they get there and calls them angels. What? Now, the two men are, they're seeing Lot interact with Sodomites. The angels here grab Lot and say what? Right? Get all your household again. We're gonna destroy this place. We are going to destroy this place. The outcry to Jah against its people is so great. Jah, he has sent us to destroy it. Right here, we know these two angels are not Jah. Is that not clear? Because they say that Jah sent them to destroy it. If they are Jah, they wouldn't have to say that, right? Right. So Genesis 19:13 says, Jah sent at least two, and I'm going to argue also the third one, all three of them, to destroy Sodom and all the cities except Zoar. This is very important, right? Because as you're going to see, we're going to get to what's the Trinitarian text that comes up in Genesis 19, everyone. We're going to get to it. Ja'ol raining fire down from Ja'ol in heaven, right? Well, if that's an angel, if that's Ja'ol, it says here that Ja'ol sent angels to destroy it. And that's why I believe, again, that that angel is, it says from Ja'ol, but it's an angel. And you're going to see why that's even more so the case. But this is one indication. The fact that this text has the angels explicitly stating, Ja'ol sent us to destroy it. Okay, so who's destroying the city, everybody? Is Ja'ol destroying the city, or is one of or all of the angels? It says right here, right? It doesn't say that Ja'ol sent them to get Lot out, does it? No. I mean, they are there for that. I understand that. But it says we, the two men, the two angels, are going to destroy this place. They don't just say, we want you to get anyone else in your household and leave. They're here to destroy it. And then they go on to say, outcry is so great, he sent us. He sent us to destroy it. Verse 14, right? Because the outcry reached him. Remember, that's from Genesis 18, right? Remember, the outcry had gotten before him, but the three men were still there to find out what was going on. And according to Genesis 19:13, to destroy it because of the outcry. So that's why I don't believe any of the three men could be Ja'ol. They're there to find out something in a way that doesn't fit the Trinitarian definition of Ja'ol's omniscience or omnipresence. And they're all the angels Ja'ol sent to destroy it. And you're going to see that even more so as we continue reading. Verse 14, so Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, hurry and get out of this place because Ja'ol is about to destroy the city. Okay, so Lot hears the angels, right? The angels tell Lot, look, Ja'ol sent us to destroy the city. How does Lot interpret that? He interprets it as Jehovah destroying the city, right? Ja'ol. So you understand, remember I told you earlier, I said after tonight, you're going to understand what's going on with Ja'ol and angels of Ja'ol. You're going to understand this relationship and how it is explained to us explicitly, and how these early figures understood these accounts and what was said to them. So we have Lot interpreting the angels saying, Jehovah sent us to destroy the city, as Ja'ol going to destroy the city. So the angels are seen as the means of Ja'ol's actions, right? Verse 15. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. Verse 16. When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and his two daughters and led them safely out of the city, for Ja'ol was merciful to them. Verse 17, as soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, one of the angels, right? This is the two angels talking to Lot this whole time. That has not changed. One of them said, flee for your lives. They just got out of the city. They're telling them to run. Don't look back. Don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. Verse 18, But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please." Verse 19, "Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me and I'll die." He's panicking, right? He doesn't think he can make it. Verse 20, "Look, here is a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." Verse 21, he said to him, "Very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of." Okay, look at that again, everyone. Remember, he's talking to one of the two men, right? They bring him out of the city. They bring him out of the city right here, and one of them says to Lot, "Flee for your lives," right? You got to get out of here. It's gonna be destroyed. "No, my lords, I can't make it. Let me get to this city right here. It's small," right? Verse 21, "Very well, I will grant this request too. This is the same one of the two angels that's been here with Lot the whole time, going into Sodom, bringing him out of the city. One of them telling, "Look, you got to run right now. Get out of here." And then Lot responding to that one saying, "I can't make it. You got to let me go to this city over here." And then the same one says to him, "Very well, I will grant the request. I will not overthrow the town you speak of," consistent with what we just read in Genesis 19:13, that Jah sent the angels to destroy these places. And so the angel even speaks from the first person. "I will not overthrow the town you speak of." And remember, this is one of the two angels that came to Sodom, and the one that stayed with Abraham is seen as the father by Trinitarians. And these are clearly two angels here. It says that explicitly multiple times. But that just does not fit, does it? Everything doesn't line up with Trinitarianism. And you have one of the two angels here explicitly stating that Jah has sent them to destroy the city, and speaking in the first person of actually destroying the city. "I will not do it," or do it. Verse 22, "But flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it." That is why the town was called Zoar. All right, and this is what we discussed in part 33 of the Christian Witnesses of Jah discussion show, where we talked about Genesis 19 and how, according to verse 22, this angel cannot be Jah, right? It says it can't do anything, very similar to Jesus in the New Testament. "I can't do anything without the Father." This angel says that too. And we know this is an angel. It has identified these two who came to Sodom as angels. One angel then starts speaking with Lot. One of them said to Lot, "Get out of here." Lot says to him, "I can't make it." One of the two angels says, "Okay, fine, I'll grant that. I will not overthrow the city. Jah sent us to destroy it. I'll spare that city so you can make it. But flee there quickly. I cannot do anything until you reach it." Okay, because it's Jah who's ultimately making this happen, right? But he's using the angels. The angel even said that in verse 13. Jah sent us to destroy the city, and then starts speaking. "I'm going to overthrow the city or not overthrow it. I can't do anything until you get there," which fits with that being an angel, right? Totally dependent upon Jah and what Jah's will is, that Lot make it to safety. So the angel can't, it is telling the truth. He can't do anything because Jah's will must be done, not this angel's will. You see? Verse 23. By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land, right? So, several hours to a half day, maybe even all day. We talked about in part 33 of the Christian Witnesses of Jah live discussion series, right? We don't really know how long it took Lot to reach Zoar, but we know that from the time of verse 22, right, where he's talking to Lot, and he says, okay, go to Zoar. I can't do anything until you get there. Verse 23 says, Lot got to Zoar when the sun had risen over the land. So maybe by midday, it sounds like. So maybe half a day, potentially, it took for Lot to get there. They're both kind of coastal cities in that area, but far enough away to where it took a while for Lot to get there, but within the same day for sure. Verse 24, then Ja'ol rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from Ja'ol out of the heavens. Okay. Whom did the angels who came to get Lot out of the city, whom did they say sent them? Ja'ol, right? Verse 13 said that explicitly. What did it say Ja'ol sent these angels to do? To destroy the city, right? And then the two angels take Lot out. One of the two angels starts speaking to Lot and says, get out of here now. Makes a deal with him to go to Zoar. And says, I can't do anything until you get there. What does he mean by it? He's talking about destroying the city, right? When he says, I can't do anything until you get there, in verse 22, he's talking about destroying the city. That's the whole point of their discussion. You got to get out of here now because we're going to destroy the city. I can't make it. I got to go to Zoar. Okay, go. I can't do anything regarding that destruction until you get there. That's the whole thing that's waiting to happen is the destruction. I can't do anything until you get there, which means I can't do anything about destroying the city until you get there. After Lot gets to Zoar, Ja'ol rains fire down, burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from Ja'ol in heaven, or in the heavens. It actually says in the heaven, singular in the Greek, but the Hebrew could be different. And it does, it is plural right here. So either way, it can be singular or plural, and sometimes it does have different references. But the point is, it's where Ja'ol is, right? It's the heaven or heavens where Ja'ol is. So who's bringing this destruction? It said the angels were sent to destroy the city. And then the angel starts talking about how he is or isn't going to destroy the city at a certain time. Then it talks about Ja'ol raining fire from Ja'ol out of heaven. So, putting the two together, it very clearly seems to mean that the angels are indicating the time of destruction. And the means of destruction comes from Ja'ol. Everything comes from Ja'ol, even the angels. But they're the means of communication or facilitation. The one thing this text does not say is exactly what Trinitarians tell us it says when they misquote it or misrepresent it as teaching one person of the Trinity is raining fire down from another person of the Trinity. We know that is impossible because these two are angels. Genesis 19:1 and thereafter, as we've read this evening, identifies these two of the three men who appeared to Abraham as angels. And the angels tell Lot, Jah sent them to destroy the city. So there's absolutely nothing that would tell us there's anything else going on here than that angels are appearing to Lot and to Abraham. And once things are in place for Jah's will to be done, that's what happens. This text only says Jah rained burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from Jah in heaven. So if the angels have been sent to the earth, Jah is in heaven. There is nothing in this text or in the context that indicates there's a Jehovah person of the Trinity on earth bringing this fire down from a Jehovah person in heaven. The word earth, eretz, is not even used, or gay. The Greek and Hebrew words for earth, they're not used here at all. There's no indication there's two persons here at all. It just says Jah rained burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from Jah in heaven, which is where he is. In other words, he's bringing the fire, he's bringing the destruction from his own person, or from, in Revelation and in other texts of the Bible, it talks about how there are bowls of fire and there's fire all over the place in heaven, multiple types. And this text says that Jah rained fire out of heaven from himself. It wasn't from some other source, not from the earth, not manufactured out of nothing. It was directly from Jah's presence or person. Fire right from him out of heaven. So this text is only explicitly telling us that Jah is in heaven. It doesn't even indicate anything about Jah being on the earth. The only ones on the earth at this time are angels. And these very same angels explicitly told Lot, Jah sent them. So there's no way, Trinitarians, there's no acceptable category in which Jah can be an angel. That's a lie. You guys are just ridiculous and can't get out of it. It's over. You guys have lost. This game is over. You can keep trying as long as you want, but you cannot win this. There's no winning anymore for your false doctrine. Okay? It's over. You don't have this text for anything, and everything leading up to this text to this point tells us these are angels on the earth, and Jah is in heaven. He's not on the earth. He sent the angels to the earth. That's why they appear as three men. One stays with Abraham, two go to the city. They're all angels, as you're going to see. These two clearly. And according to you, one of these two is Jehovah on earth. So it doesn't even matter whether the angel who's still with Abraham is Jehovah in the Trinitarian sense. You believe one of these two angels, if not both. Actually, you do, you do believe both of these angels are persons of the Trinity. And it says they're angels who've been sent to the earth by Ja'ol. So when it says in verse 24, Ja'ol rains fire down out of heaven from Ja'ol, that's completely inconsistent with the location of the angels who've been sent to the earth. So if anything, this text proves, in association with everything else we've read to this point in Genesis 19 and Genesis 1 through 18 chapters, that the two angels that went to Lot, one of whom that then started speaking to Lot, and who said that he couldn't do anything until Lot got to Zoar, right after which you say that same angel is Jehovah on earth, raining fire from Jehovah in heaven. If anything, it proves there's no way that could be the case, because it only identifies Jehovah as being in heaven, which is consistent with Genesis 19:13 that said Ja'ol sent the angels. In other words, Ja'ol's not on the earth, Trinitarians. No, he's in the heavens. You see that right there? The verse you constantly use and misrepresent as if it proves Trinity. No, it proves Jehovah's in the heavens, proving he's not the two angels on the earth. Let's keep going. We have a lot more. But that is clear, everybody. There's no Trinity here. There's just angels of Ja'ol who've been sent by him and who might not even be involved in this verse 24 at all, other than being the facilitators and indicators of the completion of Ja'ol's will, which in this case is Lot getting to Zoar, right? That's it. Otherwise, it's Ja'ol. Everything is Ja'ol. Unless he's explicitly using angels to do what he wants done, which ends up being him anyway. The angels attribute it to Ja'ol. And Ja'ol sent the angels to the earth. And this text says Ja'ol is in the heavens. There's absolutely no connection with Ja'ol in the heavens in this verse and the angels he has sent to the earth in the preceding verses. We have the whole period of time from which that angel talking to Lot on the earth waits for Lot to get to Zoar. And then it only says Ja'ol rained fire down out of heaven from Ja'ol. Doesn't even mention the angel at all. Let alone Ja'ol being that angel on the earth. It doesn't say any of that. Verse 25, last verse of our reading in Genesis 19, everybody. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and also the vegetation in the land. He overthrew the cities, right? So even though he sent angels to do it, it's ultimately him. Everything the angels would use, and at which point they indicated it was time, even their power comes from Ja'ol. It's all from Ja'ol, and they only use it if Ja'ol says so. That's why the angel said, I can't do anything until you get there. You got to get there because the Father's will is that you get there. Yeah, he sent us to destroy it, but, we can't do anything. Yeah, you get to that city, and then he's going to destroy it. And that's exactly what happened. So I don't see anything, everybody, in Genesis 19 or in the text leading up to it, the chapters leading up to it, that in any way supports this Trinitarian idea that we've got a person of the Trinity on the earth raining fire down from another person of the Trinity in heaven in Genesis 19:24. Doesn't say that, and nothing leading up to it indicates that. If anything, Genesis 19:24 proves neither one of the two angels who came to visit Lot are Ja'ol. Ja'ol's in the heavens, whereas they're on the earth. All right, and I'm going to probably clip that section that we just did and put it up to deal with this whole Genesis 19:24 matter. Now, we've got a few more texts to go through. That was our big one, though. That was the big reading. The others are a little bit shorter. I'm going to run to use the restroom real quickly, though, and then we'll be right back, okay? Here's Dada and Crazy Rabbits. Hello, little Dada. Little Dada. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me. Okay. Good to see Betsy. Very nice to have you. Looks like we have a visitor confessing exalter. A bit off topic, but could you give advice on defeating a porn addiction? Yeah, just stop watching it. It's real simple. There are plenty of other things you can do to satisfy yourself if you really want to. So good luck with that. But because it's kind of a really off topic, although we did bring up the sodomites, right? Okay. Well, we'll let that slide. I guess. Cristo, no so exemplo, you are gonzo for being retardo. And Sonia. Okay, very good. All right, good to see you all. Let's get back to our reading. Let's get back to the show. That's not the show. Where's the show? There we go. Okay. Let's go now to Genesis 21. So we've covered the Genesis 19 matter for a second time in addition to our part 33. But I think we covered it fairly completely there. So hopefully, again, I'll put up a clip at some point that'll be easy to share and address that matter. Let's take a look, though, at more. There's more, though, you need to know, and that, by the end of this evening, once you do know and you fully understand, if you haven't already, I think is going to make even more clear, right? I think it's clear what's going on in Genesis 19, especially in light of what occurred leading up to it, but even from everything in it. But there's more, okay? So let's go and review it. Genesis 21:16 through 18. Couple brief accounts here, okay? So this is going to wrap up kind of quickly. See how long we've been going. Not quite 2 hours yet. We got a little late start, kind of a half-hour delay because we did about a 25-minute segment, but the audio was terrible. But then we fixed the audio, so we reset the show. All right, and then we're going to partake at the end, okay? So hang with me. We're going to do that. Let's finish the readings. Genesis 21:16 through 18. Then she went off and sat down. It's talking about Hagar. Then she went off and sat down because what happened was, remember how initially Sarah and Abraham. Sarah was old and she gave Hagar to Abraham so that he could take her as his wife and have a child and then increase their family. But after Sarah had done that, Hagar began to despise Sarah, even though she was Abraham's first wife and allowed Hagar to have her husband and have a child. So then she wanted her sent away. But then the angel of Jah, we talked about this in part 3, found Hagar and sent her back to Sarah. And so she went back. But now what happened was after Isaac was born and Ishmael was born, when Sarah saw Ishmael making fun of Isaac, she had Hagar and Ishmael leave. So this is the context of that. This is what, after they left, Hagar's out, right? Her water supply's low and she's crying. The baby's crying, but she's kind of separated so she doesn't have to hear the crying. And then it says in verse 16 of chapter 21, she went off and sat down about a bow shot away from the child, for she thought, I cannot watch the boy die. And as she sat there, she began to sob. Verse 17, God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Okay. So this is a text I've brought up elsewhere in other videos where I've talked about angels of God. Not in this series, but you can see here that God hears the boy crying, but the angel of God calls out to Hagar. Because remember, you can't hear the Father's voice, at least according to my reading of John 5 and John 6. And no one has seen him. Because he uses angels, right? Just like we know from Acts 7, that when it says it's Jehovah in the burning bush, Jehovah on Mount Sinai, it's angels, plural, according to Acts 7. And they even talk, according to Acts 7, like Jehovah, using the Lord or divine name. So here we have something very similar. We have the angel responding on behalf of God and communicating what God has heard and going to do for the boy. But it's very clear it's the angel talking to Hagar out of heaven. So it's very important you understand the extent to which angels speak and act for God and as God. That angel, these angels have all been acting as God to all of these people, in spite of the fact that they're understood to be angels. Verse 18, lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. I will make him into a great nation. This is the angel talking. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven. The angel is talking from verse 17 right into verse 18. I will make him into a great nation. So what's going on here? Well, it's very obvious, is it not? It's the angel talking for God. Just like we read in Zechariah, just like we've read in Genesis 1 through 18 to this point in several areas. Sometimes it seems like it's God and just says God or Jehovah. But like we've read in Acts, that doesn't mean that's what it is or who it is. In fact, several times, like Acts 7 shows us, where it says that, where it says it's Jehovah, it's not. It's an angel. Exactly like right here, right? This angel is speaking for God right here from heaven, right? In response to Hagar's crying. And the boy's crying. So the angels are always doing this, everybody. Everywhere, at all times, except for a very few, like with Moses, when God took special precaution to just give him a glimpse, right? Other than that, you can't. It's not possible. John 1:18, no one. John 6:44 through 46, no one. No, can't do it. But the angels can, right? The angels, they can communicate what God wants them to communicate. They can destroy what God wants them to destroy. When they say they're going to do something, it's seen as Jah doing something. This is how the sons of God represent and relate to God all throughout the Bible. This is exactly what happens with Jesus as well. Trinitarians have lied to everybody and misrepresented these angels and what they do and who they are and how they act. And the result is all this confusion, when if you just read these accounts, you would see pretty clearly, hey, these angels are able to absolutely speak directly as God from heaven in response to people crying out to them without there being any problem whatsoever. Right? These are explicitly angels, everybody, even in these accounts. All right, now let's go to Genesis 22. So right there in Genesis 21:16 through 18, right, we have an angel speaking for God as God from the first person out of heaven. But it's an angel. Genesis 22, 1 through 2. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. Sometimes in English we say Abraham. It's just the way it comes out. But yes, I know how to pronounce it. Abraham. I still will say Abraham. Sometime later, or Avram, if that's the context. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, Abraham replied. Verse 2, then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. And as we've talked about before, as we know, this is not an account where God actually had Abraham do this. He was testing him for the specific reason that he needed to have this trait of obedience in the line of the Messiah as he's preparing the body of the Messiah to undergo this exact thing involving Abraham and Isaac. Something that was actually much more widely accepted and practiced in these ancient times, in these ancient places. And so when people in more modern times try to recontextualize the Bible into something ridiculous, they really just show how stupid they are, don't they? Verse 3. No, verse 10. Remember, we're just going to read the parts that deal with this explicit, implicit, potential angel stuff. Verse 10. Then he reached out his hand. Okay, so right before this, right, we read 1 and 2 about how God commanded Abraham to sacrifice his son as a burnt offering. And then the in-between parts we skipped are about him taking Isaac and going up to the place God would show him. So they get there, and he ties Isaac up, and then it says in verse 10, Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. Verse 11, but the angel of Jah called out to him from heaven, just like the angel called to Hagar from heaven, speaking for God in the first person as an angel, the thing Trinitarians often say is impossible for Jesus to do, this angel's doing right now and has already done. And here calls out to Abraham and stops him from sacrificing his son, proving that was never his intent, you perverts. And in verse 12, this angel says this: do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only one. Okay, so this is an angel, right? It said that explicitly right here in the preceding verse. It's an angel talking. Because if it were God in a Trinitarian sense, God would already know that, right? God would already know whether or not Abraham feared him or not. Wouldn't he, Trinitarians? Isn't he all-knowing the way you guys see him? Everything he has to know. He doesn't have a choice, right? According to you, which is far less than our view. Either way, this, in addition to the other things that the ones that the Trinitarians identify as members of the Trinity don't know, according to Genesis 18, including whether or not the things heard about the Sodomites are true. So Trinitarians fail not only to realize that it explicitly says this is an angel talking in verse 11, but it once again conflicts with their view of God's omniscience, that God has to already know everything, right? The end from the beginning from the end, right? The end from the beginning, all of it, Trinitarians. What's going on here? How could he not already know? Why would he put Abraham through all this if he's omniscient? He would just know, right? Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. Well, why doesn't he know this, Trinitarians? Oh, because it's an angel. Gotcha, right. And also your view of omniscience is wrong. Either way, something going on here, and it's not Trinity. Verse 15, skip a couple filler verses. The angel of Jah called to Abraham from heaven a second time. Everybody, this is not a one-off thing. We've got the angel of Jah calling from heaven to speak to Hagar. We've got the angel of Jah calling to Abraham from heaven twice and saying, you haven't withheld your son from me, right? Remember in verse 14, 22:18. Oh yeah, we skipped a couple about where the ram got stuck. But right here, the angel is talking, right? Verse 11. The angel of the Lord called out to Abraham from heaven. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Don't do anything. I know you fear God. You have not withheld from me your only son. It's the angel talking for God again, right? Is that not obvious? Remember, everyone, these are angels. God makes his angels spirits, flames of fire. The angels are the ones that God used in the Old Testament text, according to Hebrews 1, in terms of their activity as spirits, right? As ministering spirits, quoting the Psalms. So this is an angel talking for God, and Abraham not withholding Isaac from God, but it's the angel speaking as God. Verse 15, you see, this was clear early on, everybody. There was no need for the Trinity ever to explain this stuff. It's the same thing in the New Testament. It's just the firstborn's the one involved versus these angels, whether it's the firstborn or not. And he came to the earth as a man, lower than the angels. That's how he became better than them. No Trinity, mutability. Verse 15, the angel of Jah, we read that, called a second time. And this is what the angel says. Okay, this is it. This is it, everybody. This is the game over moment. In addition to the fact that the game is already over. Angels talking, right? This is the second time it's been calling to Abraham. Verse 15, the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares Jah, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies. Verse 18, and through your offspring, all nations of the earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Who is talking here, everybody? Verse 15, for the second time, out of heaven to Abraham, it's the angel. It's an angel, everybody. This is how angels are. This is how they talk. This is how they're viewed. Does Abraham make any distinction? Does Hagar make any distinction? Does anybody from Zechariah to Genesis to this point in our readings of angels of Jah in the Bible, does anybody make a distinction? Or do they not simply accept the angel as absolutely Jah? So much so that in some accounts you don't even know they're angels until you read Acts 7, right? Let's go to our last reading, Genesis 24. Several texts in Genesis 24 that's going to bring all this together, and then we'll partake and wrap it up. Thank you for joining me. My apologies for those of you who had to endure the 25 minutes of the prior attempt we did at this live show. We finally got the sound right, and we're almost done. So I thank you for hanging in there. Genesis 24, verse 7. Jah, the God of heaven, who brought me out of my father's household and my native land, and who spoke to me and promised me on oath, saying, to your offspring I will give this land. He will send his angel before you so that you can get a wife for my son from there. This is Abraham speaking to his servant and telling him that Jah will send his angel before his servant in order to get a wife for Isaac. Now, let's go to verses 40 through 44. Last part of our reading, connected with verse 7. He replied, this is the servant talking to Laban and Rebekah as he's there after he met her at the well and she gave him water. Abraham's servant replied, Jah, before whom I walked faithfully. This is the servant repeating what Abraham told him. which we just read in verse 7 of chapter 24. Ja'ol will send his angel with you and make your journey a success so that you can get a wife for my son from my own clan and from my father's family. Verse 41, you will be released from my oath if, when you go to my clan, they refuse to give her to you. Then you will be released from my oath. This is Abraham talking to his servant. And this is his servant relating to Laban and Rebekah what Abraham told him. Verse 42, when I came to the spring today, I said, Ja'ol, God of my master Abraham, if you will, please grant success to the journey on which I have come. Verse 43. See, I am standing beside this spring. This is the servant as he's talking to Ja'ol. If a young woman comes out to draw water and I say to her, please let me drink a little water from your jar, and if she says to me, drink, I'll draw water for your camels too. Let her be the one Ja'ol has chosen for my master's son. Okay, so where's the angel in this? Because it's just said several times, Abraham told his servant, Ja'ol will send his angel to make sure you get a wife. Then the servant repeats that to Laban and Rebekah. Abraham told me, Ja'ol will send his angel, and you will find a wife for my son. And here you have Abraham's servant praying that Ja'ol lets Rebekah be the woman for Isaac. Why is this so important? Because it shows very clearly, does it not? It shows the close association all the way back in Genesis between Ja'ol and his sons, the angels. Trinitarians, it's over. God is not an angel. Two of the three, let alone all three of the three, are not men in Genesis 3 or persons of the Trinity, are not angels. Even if you want to try to argue in some way as you do that Jesus or the Holy Spirit are angels in some sense, no, they're not. Not according to the Trinity. Not according to the Bible. They have to be created if they're angels. He makes his angels spirits. They're made spirits. And we know, of course, Jesus is a made spirit, not only being the firstborn, but firstborn of all creation, but also the firstborn from the dead. He became mutability, a life-giving spirit, Trinitarians, pneuma, 1 Corinthians 15:45, irrefutable. The verb genomai applies both to Adam as a living soul and to Jesus becoming a life-giving spirit upon his resurrection. So he's been created twice, or three times if you count his human creation, where he became nothing, kanao, Philippians 2, lower than the angels. Totally emptied himself, Trinitarians, of all his divinity, all his spirit, godship, and became a man. Lower than the gods, angels, sons of God, who were with God, with the Word, in the beginning, and who have been sent and used by God ever since, according to these accounts, from Genesis 1 to 24 so far, speaking for him, acting as him, being addressed as him, being worshipped all the way with your face planted to the ground, Trinitarians, in the case of Lot, and the two angels, something you say could never be done to an angel. is explicitly done to two angels in Genesis 19. And that's not all. We also proved that in Genesis 19:24, the only place Ja'ol is said to be is in heaven. And either that's actually Ja'ol, like the one God Ja'ol, or it's an angel, like the angel he's been using to, as the angels told Lot, destroy the city, even though he's destroying the city. The angel who spoke to Hagar and twice to Abraham out of heaven. Those are the only two options, Trinitarians. It's either Ja'ol raining fire directly from Ja'ol, or it is an angel of Ja'ol in heaven raining fire down and destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. But it doesn't have to say that in order for it to be the case. We already know that the angel of Ja'ol speaks directly out of heaven using the first person and talking absolutely as if he is Ja'ol. Only he's not. He's an angel, Trinitarians. The very thing you say Jesus is not, except for when we can prove that he is. So there is absolutely no basis for the Trinity in Genesis to this point, and certainly nothing Trinitarian in Genesis 19, let alone Genesis 19:24, which again speaks only of Ja'ol being in heaven at that point, whereas the three men that Trinitarians identify from chapter 18 are on the earth. So Genesis 19:24, if anything, disproves that those three men who are on earth are Ja'ol in heaven. But because it's possible that after the angel of Ja'ol told one of the two angels that went to Sodom, brought him out of the city and told him he could go to Zoar, it's possible that since it took a half a day or more for Lot to get to Zoar, the angel of Ja'ol, one of the two at least, that was there and said he couldn't do anything until Lot got to Zoar, went to heaven, from which place he rained fire down from heaven, not as a person of the Trinity, but as an angel, exactly as these accounts say they are. And just as that angel, or an angel, spoke out of heaven as Ja'ol to Hagar and to Abraham, without there being any indication that the angel had gone back to heaven. Right? These accounts don't have to give us every transitional detail. Yet Trinitarians seem to think that there's no way that one of the angels whom they claim is the Jehovah uncreated Trinitarian angel couldn't be on earth, had to be on earth in Genesis 19:24, even though it doesn't say that, in addition to Jehovah being in heaven. Right? So they add all of these details and concepts that are nowhere hinted at in these accounts. Whereas these accounts actually, when you read them and you understand them in light of their historical context, you can see very clearly these angels are sent by God to represent him, to speak as him, but they are not him. They are never identified as anything other than angels or men, all of whom are seen and none of whom are described in ways that fit with the Trinitarian understanding of God as omniscient or omnipresent. And in fact, they say things, all three of these angels, like having to go down to find out what's going on in Sodom, having to learn about Abraham and whether he fears him. And again, that's an angel talking to Abraham. It said that explicitly. The angel called out to him and stopped him from sacrificing Isaac. So being an angel makes more sense for these more limited descriptions, especially in a Trinitarian context, right? But even in our understanding, it fits much better to understand these angels as they represent Ja'ol in these ways, to be in many cases these beings who are described in these limited ways. So, although our understanding of God's omniscience and omnipresence fits much more with him being able to find things out without it compromising his essential attributes. So, nevertheless, it doesn't work with Trinity, though. It doesn't fit with their view of God and his omniscience, omnipresence at all in a pre-incarnate state, right? They try to use the dual nature in the New Testament, Jesus' humanity, to get away from some of this stuff. Can't do that here. Can't do that with any of them here. So I hope you've enjoyed our discussion at this point. I think it's very clear as of part 4 that early on in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, the sons of God are presented frequently, angels, as representing and as being sent by God. So much so that Abraham told his servant, Ja'ol's going to send this angel and make sure you get this, right? They're seeing the angels very clearly as involved in everything, even if they address them directly as Ja'ol, because that's exactly who they're there to represent. That's why we have accounts like Acts 7 that tell us, no, those were angels there. You can't see God. You haven't heard the Father's voice. No. These are angels. It says explicitly they're angels. And it never describes them as anything but angels, not as persons of the Trinity or uncreated or eternal. In fact, it describes them in ways that basically prove they can't possibly be eternally God in the ways that Trinitarians define him as. So I hope you've understood a lot of what we've discussed this evening, and that it helps you make more sense of these accounts. There's a lot more. We're going to get into all of it, starting with part 5. But this is our last show, Christian Witnesses of Jah live discussion of 2023. We'll pick up again in our regular Saturday live shows sometime in probably late January. Take a few weeks off for the new year. I'll be back tomorrow with a text reading from Proverbs if you'd like to join me. That will be our final show of this year, final live show anyway. But before we conclude, we are going to partake, as we do in our Christian Witnesses of Jah live discussion shows. So I'll give you a moment to prepare yourself if you'd like to join me as we partake of the blood and body of the Messiah, the one who was sent forth as angels are sent forth. He being the archangel, the ruler of the angels, the chief one, number one, whom we believe is also here in these accounts with other angels as well, representing Ja'ol, speaking as Ja'ol, even though they're his sons. But his firstborn son was sent, just like Isaac was almost sacrificed, but wasn't. Because that's not what God intended, but he knew what he intended. And in order for it to be done right, he made sure that that trait of obedience was in the humanness that the Messiah would have. And he gave that human life on our behalf and in obedience to the Father, that we might live through him. I encourage you to join us as often as you're able, and to partake of the emblems as often as you come together with others who are prepared to do so, so that in doing so, you not only demonstrate your faith and belief in the sacrifice of the Son, that in trusting in him and confessing our sins, we might be forgiven and have a proper relationship with God, but we also proclaim to the world that he is coming again. So with that thought in mind, may you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'll be back tomorrow, Sunday, with our last live show of this year. Until then, thank you all for joining me, and may Jah bless you. In Jesus' name.